I think
Sorry, go on.
there's a momentary lapse. Momentary lapse in micro here from the Germans, but they've picked it up again and they're about to encircle this whole force. Unless... Nope. They almost got counter-encircled, but they witnessed it in time and pulled back.
And those
Oh, look at this gap.
French horses are staying put up in Amiens while the Germans just continue to push through the centre. Maginot holding steady at the moment, but there's French tanks moving south around Besançon. And looks like the Maginot is going to get encircled too.
It's kind of a, you kind of have mixed feelings here, because on the one hand, you saw those horses that 58% entrenchment, and with that, they had like 2,300 defense. So you're sitting there and you're wondering, like, hey, would I be wise to keep sitting here and, try to do as much damage, or do I not want to risk getting encircled and just pull these troops out so they can fight another day? And I'm not sure if this is a lapse of micro on the French end, but they have 7 divisions sitting next to Amiens, which are about to get encircled, and they're not doing anything with them. Once Dieppe falls, which is about to fall, it's over for them.
Yeah, and the French aren't going to evacuate any troops at all. So none of these will be fighting in Africa.
Yep, the entire Maginot Pocket just got encircled as well. We are looking at like the Germans are driving into Brest. Dieppe is encircled. I don't know if the French have any other troops anywhere, but at the moment it does not seem likely that I'm not seeing any French troops. Oh, they've got a few in the UK, but
yeah, I think this is about as complete a disaster for France as it could possibly have been. They have saved basically nothing.
They have actually saved only 10 divisions. I think France actually, like you said, went all in on defending France, and they just lost massively. And that could be a huge problem for the Allies, who have actually moved away from El Alamein. They are actively setting up a defensive line in the mountains. They don't have any faith in their ability to hold this. All I'm seeing is 3 English shovels with some AA in it. They have no tanks.
Yeah, there are a couple of British Raj units defending in Morocco, but that's it.
Yeah, and okay, I do see, of course, our sneaky New Zealand player, Zobertus. He has prepared the light tanks we were talking about. I'm looking at 3 divisions. He's called Speed. Definitely the right name for those divisions. With mobile warfare, they zoom like nothing. But I'm afraid that they're going to be useless against heavy tanks. They're not going to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have liked to see France trying to at least get some of those cavalry evacuated, because those huge blocks would just be deadly in the mountains, because the defense is just so high. Heavy tanks pushing through mountains would really, really struggle. But the fact that they didn't manage to save any, I think, is going to be really bad, and North Africa is going to fall because of it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of a problem for the French strategy, because they decided to get all in on a strategy that only specifically works in plain styles. So, Western Europe is a very good example of that. They didn't prepare anything that would have been useful in Africa. Like a more traditional France build would be to have some infantry and then back it up with your own heavy tanks, and just hold Germany for as long as you can. And the second you're like, hey, I don't think we're going to be able to do this, you pull back your heavy tanks, you send them to Africa so they can be used for the defense of El Alamein. They have not done that, and we're looking at a very empty northwest northwest France.
Sorry, I really like this. We've got German heavy cruisers raiding off the coast of India right now. That's an area you don't often see naval effort in.
And this is, I suppose, the time where I reveal that I know exactly what's about to happen here. I would just say have a look at the Italian plans, and I think that should suffice.
Yeah, I can see what they are planning, and I like it.
Yep. So this is obviously an incredibly aggressive play from the Axis, but this is exactly why I call the French strategy a misplay, because the Axis, they prepared for exactly this scenario, and now you're going to see how deadly that Italian investment in the surface navy was. Like, we talked about it, and we said, hey, why, they're building the surface fleet, but they can't get out unless they have the Suez. Well, unless the English are about to spawn a few thousand heavy tanks up here in Luxor, I think they're going to get the Suez as well.
Especially with the Iraqi camels out in large numbers already. They're going to be pushing Jordan from one side and then Egypt from the other. No German tanks have crossed the Channel or across the Mediterranean yet, but there's a couple of them already parked in Sicily, so they're clearly preparing for that.
Yeah, I think they probably want to make sure that they have... Oh, yeah. As you can see, they already have 5,000, and the Axis, that is, already have 5,000 fighters over the central med. All they want to do now is just ensure that they've got air superiority there. Having air superiority with the central med, it means that you can deploy your own naval attack bombers there to discourage the enemy from having their supply convoys go through it, defend your own convoys. And they're just preparing for, this massive defense of this specific tile so they can wrestle control of the med a lot easier.
Yeah, which is a move I very much like, because this is one of those times where German tanks can be very, very vulnerable as they're crossing back and forth across the Mediterranean, but it looks like the Italians and the Hungarians with the air cover are definitely doing the right job in just entirely securing that one spot where the tanks can then cross.
Yep. And in the meantime, I've had a look over at Japan, and I'm liking this build. It's very standard build, but it's one that usually works. They've gone for the Carrier Fighter 2, which they have decided to call the Chat French plane. I don't know why. I don't think the Zero was invented in France. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it was, unless Mitsubishi has a French boss or owner. But they're going for the Carrier Fighter 2s and the tactical bombers, which is a very obvious choice if you want to wrestle control of Malaya. I'm looking at Siam, which is building up its radar, its airports, very standard but solid play. They're building up a lot of infantry divisions, and I'm expecting to see some mountaineers in here. Or sorry, not mountaineers, but Marines. And the mountaineers are somewhere, but not in Japan. They're, of course, in Manchu, who's currently researching it, and they're going to be going for the battle with the British Raj, whereas Japan is probably going to be looking at the troop deployment on taking Malaya. So, interesting developments in Asia, looking very fine.
Never seen that before. Tojijo Nijio, the Japanese main general, has a level 10 supply. No, sorry, tactics.
Oh.
Planning speed plus 50%, max planning plus 20.
Hold on. Is this a misplay or am I missing something? Okay, so somebody mentioned earlier that Australia would be going for the Fighter 3 rush, and they are actually correct. They are currently 38 days away from getting the CA-17, which is the Fighter 2, and they've already got the research bonus from Expand the RAF ready, and they're going to queue up the Fighter 2, or Fighter 3 rather, in 35 days. Now, of course, the reason they haven't rushed it yet is because of the time restriction, which you can see here, date locked to 1940. And I just heard the magic horn. Where did it land? Did it land?
Hasn't yet. Oh no, they're on the way.
It has.
Madagascar. Yep, they're just about to land. I know I don't usually say the port name, but they're here, so too late.
And this is key. The reason they're going for Madagascar is there just so happens to be a nation very close to it, and he does have. Okay, so the Raj is actually occupying the ports in South Africa, but the Italians are committing a lot to this invasion, and they are going to lose Ethiopia, but Ethiopia has already served its purpose. They use the ports here, because of the range to invade the Seychelles and Madagascar, and I don't see the Allies being capable of providing divisions there on time.
Britain apparently doesn't believe in escorts. They have no escorts whatsoever.
Do they? Ooh, this.
And they've already lost about 500 convoys. They had about 1,300 when the war started. They're down to 800.
Are you sure they didn't lend them to Canada?
Oh, they might have. I just know how many they had.
I assume I'm going to look at Canada's number. So Canada starts with no convoys at all, like 200, and they now have 750. This is actually pretty standard. I mean, he's the air controller, which means that you're going to need a lot of convoys to supply your airplanes that you usually have sitting in air bases in the UK and Africa. And what they're doing here is they are intercepting the convoys that Canada has probably, I assume, received from the UK in order to lower the efficiency of his airplanes, which is actually very smart. If they don't get supply, they can't fly.
And Canada's made a bit of a mistake here as well, because the Iberian coast, which is where all the convoys are being hit, they only have recon there. No naval bombers.
And oh no, look at this! The naval route efficiency for the UK has gone down by 50%. They are receiving less than half the aluminum they need to build their planes. They are all in on building planes like a good UK should be, but he's not getting the resources for them, and that's going to cut into the numbers they have available to them. That's actually a really good play from the Axis here. Iberian coast is traditionally one of the more vulnerable tiles, unless the Allies get a good defense set up from the Azores, and they don't have radar. That's going to hurt. That's really going to hurt.
They have just moved in 100 naval bombers, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Like, there are a lot of submarines here. I would imagine it's probably the entirety of the German and Italian subfleets there. Certainly the German one.
I mean, I'm going to pan over to the Italians just to see what they have deployed. And no, there are no Italian submarines.
They're out in the Indian Ocean for obvious reasons, in fact.
And this is actually genius team play from the Axis. They're using the German Navy. They're sacrificing it. And you know that Germany's been building nothing but submarines from day one. They're spamming those submarines. They're letting them die. They're like, hey, I don't care. We're going to clear convoys. And while the Allies are tunnel vision on dealing with that, the Italians have free reign over the Arabian Sea. And they're just invading left, right, and center. That's just beautiful to see. That is masterful play by the Axis here.
And now that Madagascar's falling, North Africa's going to fall. In fact, Italy has already begun the invasion, has taken Tunis. Where's Free France going to go? Is this going to cause Free France to capitulate?
Well, it's going to take a while for them to take over all the VPs. And you mentioned the bricks, the cavalry bricks. They're not going to fall to these. What are these? I think these are... Oh, there's 20 with shovels, yeah. They're not going to fall to the shovels. So for the moment, I think we're going to see a stalemate in the west, but...
Suez has fallen.
Like you mentioned, we've got the German panzers running down the Nile, and I don't think these British infantry divisions are going to be able to do anything about that. I don't think they have any say whatsoever.
Nope, Jordan and Israel and Sinai has fallen. Meanwhile, the Italians pushed over from the other side of Egypt, taking out Suez, and now those mean Italian cruisers have free reign over the world. They can go anywhere.
And speaking of... wait, hold on. Okay, no, never mind. Sorry, I thought it was something different. But one thing that I'm noticing here is I'm clicking on the airports that the Allies have, and they don't even have all their fighters here. In fact, they only have 1,800 fighters and 1,300 casks in Africa. You don't need that much casks to hold people back. I mean, it's not all going to join the battle at the same time. So it's interesting that the Allies haven't decided to invest more fighters here. Then again, the Axis haven't started countering them yet. So at the moment, or for the moment, they've got green air.
Italy's out of fuel, however, and Hungary is running very, very low.
Ooh. I mean, so long as they don't get... I mean, I don't think Italy's currently got any airplanes deployed, do they? No, they've got, 100 naval bombers. So long as their navies don't run into any battles, they should be fine. I mean, at the end of the day...
they have submarines currently raiding Australian transports, and the Australians are actually there. They do have a fleet present.
Actually, in fact, it's the chat Dutch Navy that has come in and decided to help out their Australian pals. And I'm looking at... And I don't understand why the AI does this. We have Conrad Helfrich, Ship-a-Day Helfrich, our submarine admiral, currently deployed on a few destroyers defending the Australian convoys traveling through the West Indian Ocean.
That hurts me every time
Dutch
I see
AI.
it.
Yep.
It hurts me. Especially when the Allies are in the... especially when the Dutch are in the Allies, because then they get the Ship-a-Day quota, which makes Helfrich better than Dönitz.
Yep. It is absolutely a shame to witness, but unfortunately it is what it is. And hey, at the very least he's doing a good job defending the convoys in the Western Indian Ocean at the moment. And oh boy. The Germans once again with the ballsy moves. I'm looking at literally their pride of the fleet, unescorted. The Admiral's Care just hanging out at the Bay of Bengal and just kind of hunting enemy convoys. He's currently got 22 convoys in a battle, and he's winning it for the moment.
I mean, to be honest, having played as Germany several times, doing this strategy where you just have the Panzer ships, and that's what they're built for, going out on their own. Now, ordinarily, Germany does start with a number of light cruisers, and I would escort with the light cruisers because they count as a screen. But this is actually remarkably effective because they have a very long range, and they can reach places way beyond where the submarines can go. And usually the only thing they come up against are destroyers, and they just maul destroyers.
Yep, and in this case they ran into convoys, and that fate was indeed beset upon them. And I don't think they're having a good time at the bottom of the ocean right now.
Because it's actually a really, really mean combination, because you send your heavy cruisers out to kill the destroyers, and then that basically leaves your submarines completely free to go after the convoys.
Exactly, and obviously surface ships are way easier to spot, and I do believe that because those ships will constantly be trying to engage the the surface fleet, which being the cruisers. Like you said, those submarines can just kind of go about their day and have a good time raiding everybody.
And that's one of the interesting things coming in No Step Back is one of the Naval Academy upgrades you can get is to make, for Germany specifically, is to make their surface ships require less of an escort.
Oh, so you get a lower positioning penalty, or what is it? Screening penalty if you have
Well,
less.
at the moment,
use.
it's set as a positioning penalty, which won't actually do anything, or positioning bonus, which won't do anything. But I'm hoping they realise that and change it for a screening bonus, because that's what it should be.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, I do not have my calculator with me, so I couldn't tell you what the exact values are, but I get your point. In the meantime, I'm curious what the Axis miners are up to. We haven't really looked at them for a while. So we've got Romania rushing guns, which is okay. I think they're probably going to go special forces. And looking at the marine mountaineer research, that is very likely.
Well, Romania's on Coast Guard orders right now. They're the ones holding up to the Atlantic wall.
Yeah, but what they'll probably do is, I don't know what doctrine they went. I'll have to check that real quick. They went SFP. But what they'll do is they'll use those 20 whiff divisions, or maybe even 10 whiffs. I don't know. No, they're 20 whiffs. They'll use them to spike their total division cap so they can get more special forces out, and then make a select amount of special forces divisions, which will be their mainstay. And of course, they are 14-4 Marines, which they'll probably use to harass the allies in the Mediterranean, or even to cross river tiles and barb, which they're actually pretty good for. The Marines can be very useful in that way.
So the German heavy tanks are now pushing through the deserts to the south of the Tunisian mountains, and that might be enough to get an encirclement around Constantine to Annaba and knock out those big bricks.
It actually looks like it's the Italians currently attacking. They're obviously securing the German flank, pinning divisions left and right, while the Germans keep on pushing. And I think the Germans might just beeline for Algiers and then fold into Annaba, or no, they're just going for the small encirclements. Defeat in detail. It's what the German players are really keen on usually.
Yep. I mean, in the first game we saw them just go for the big knockout punches, and in the second game it was 100% defeat in detail, death by 1,000 cuts, and this time they seem to be using that same strategy.
I mean, at the end of the day, these are the finals, and I do expect some players, or maybe even just the key players, to play a little more conservatively, because at the end of the day, losing these tanks here could literally spell disaster for the rest of the game. And the Germans taking it easy, letting the Italian infantry move up, and then keep pushing is just good. I think they will, because they've got the division pinned, and those Italians are about to arrive in 2 hours. There you go.
So the French did get 2 of their bricks out, and they've circled around to Algiers, where they're setting up a secondary defensive line, which will be harder to kill.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is just, playtime for the Germans. They're just having a good time right now. They've won Africa. Like, they are more than secure than where they are. I think they're probably even going to try pushing, because the British are attritioning hard. They've got way too many divisions in the east. And, they're just currently... What they're probably doing, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the case, they're just leveling their divisions. They're like, okay, you guys want to put up a fight here? Let me, constantly get these really, beneficial battles for me and level my tanks. Yeah, let's go. Like, look at these tanks. He's got 1 level 5 veteran tank. He's got 1 level 4, and all the others are like just leveling. They're getting XP. They're having a good time, and this is just getting better and better for the Germans.
Meanwhile, the British have lost another 100 convoys. They're down to 750, of which only 90 are spare.
Well, in that case, the Germans actually have more convoys right now with 1,154. I think the Royal Navy needs to step up its game right now.
Oh, massively. Like, this is why I was so concerned about what Britain was doing early on. They've not taken any major steps for Navy. They still have 0 ships on escort duty. And that's just asking for trouble as Britain. Like, you've got to put some effort into screening those convoys, otherwise you will just get knocked out. And that is precisely what's happening here.
I mean, what might have happened is that they understood that this was the team that sea lioned, in one of their games, or even 2. I don't know if it was just 1 or 2. And they might just be scared here. Because if you look at the defense that they've got set up in the UK, now obviously there's no armor here, which is a bit of a surprise to me, because I haven't seen SAF heavy tanks yet. They might be lining them up at Luxor, I don't know. But they have so many divisions in the British Isles right now. They're even double stacking forts, triple stacking, quadruple stacking. Yeah, I think the British have a different motive here for keeping so many troops in the home Isles, and that is because they do not want to die this early on in the game.
And yet their convoys are just getting absolutely obliterated. There's still only 100 naval bombers in the Iberian coast striking out against the subs. It's just not enough.
Yeah, but look at their deployment as well. One thing that's interesting for me is that they have disabled both automatic split off and automatic reinforcement, which obviously makes it so that your ships won't split off and automatically just repair themselves. And I think they're also low. No, they're in high priority. Not sure what's going on there, but they have their fleets. Okay, so they repositioned one of them, their big fleet, their massive one. It's currently chilling in Khartoum, but this I don't understand. This is their biggest fleet. It's kind of a def stack, but it has no carriers. In fact, they've got their carriers. Wait, they only have 3? What did they do?
Some might be getting repaired.
No, they're just split off. They're docked in Northern Ireland, and they have no mission set. If you look at the British theaters, you've got like the really big one, and then you have just one with two, and that's the converted cruiser and battleship hulls.
I mean, to be fair, I do that as well, so I don't need to bother about replacing the carrier planes.
I mean, I personally, like to harass my US player to give me fighter twos and naval bomber twos, but not everybody's as agreeable, I guess.
And also, if Britain's gone for fleet in being, if they've even bothered with the doctrine, I'm not convinced they have. I'm going to double check that. Then carriers just aren't as good. In fact, Britain's gone trade interdiction. What are you doing?
No, there is actually a method to the madness, but first I would like to invite everybody to drop an F in chat for Portugal, who has of course tried to stay out of World War II. They were trying to stay neutral, but Franco said no. He said, no, your time is up. I want your tungsten because the Germans are going to need it. So, yep, F's in chat for the Portuguese who are literally about to die. Sorry to my mod who is Portuguese and has to witness this.
I mean, we witnessed the fall of the Netherlands, so...
Exactly, we all have to go through a little pain. But what I was going to say regarding the method to the madness is that I assume he went for the battlecruiser bonuses, and yes, he did. Now, the UK does start with a fair amount of battlecruisers and battleships. In fact, I think they have the most battlecruisers and battleships at the start of the game. I believe they do, right?
But generally, you really don't want to go trade interdiction as the UK, because you want those convoy escort bonuses. Because those bonuses aren't how well your convoys fight, it's how quickly they respond to a call for help. So if you want to use destroyers at all, which frankly this England's not, then you want to have those convoy escort bonuses so that your destroyers can actually respond when the submarines appear.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with you, but I was just saying, I think that the reason this player's done this is he wants to, it's like I said, right? He split off the two carriers, he's not even using those, he's not getting carrier plane reinforcements. It seems like he just doesn't care about his carriers, and going into trade interdiction and going for the battle fleet concentration focus, or at least the focus of the booster BCs and BBs, while ignoring things like convoy escorting, it just seems like he wants to go all in on his battleships.
I don't think I've ever seen it this bad before. 68% attrition in Egypt.
Oh dear.
In the mountains where the supply is poor.
Yep,
68.
I'm looking at the same thing in the French front. I'm looking at 25% attrition for the Free French forces, and they are not having a good time.
It's because all of their convoys are being cut off. They're bringing in the supplies. Like, Africa's in a different continent. You got to supply it.
Oh, and look at this. Look at this. The Italians are moving on, and they're taking Diego Garcia. Oh, this is a big brain play. They are moving further. Are we going to see an Italian Dutch East Indies? Are we going to see the Italians take over the colonies?
Would be interesting.
It would be the big brain player. I mean, there's nothing here. Yeah, there's a few under-equipped Dutch divisions, but they wouldn't hold up. I'm curious. In the meantime, though, the Italians haven't seemed to have secured Madagascar yet. I don't know why they're not moving their divisions. They're just kind of chilling there. They're having a good time.
Well, they've taken the ports, and they probably don't really care about the internal bit. But yeah, it's a weird choice.
There is no port in the south. That guy is just attritioning to death, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not mistaken.
64%, and he's look at that 33% strength. Yeah, I think they've realized that they're now scrambling to get back to civilization. And oh yeah, look at that. Oh, those British shovels got encircled, but they do have ports to back it up. At least they were smart enough. This is something a lot of players will do. Is you'll notice the port in Sinai. You'll use that to escape in case the Suez gets cut off. And then they've also got the port set up in Eastern Desert. I usually would build them at the bottom, because, you know, who plans to get encircled, but it seems like they built the backup ports here in case they get encircled so they could escape. So I think these Brits are going to get out. But they're... Oh, finally! Hey, look at that! South African Armored Division. It's finally arrived. The South African Heavy Tank.
So do they have mechanized, or how have they built it?
They were building mechanized early in the game, but they're built... What? Okay, so remember the American T1 Heavies? Like we suggested, they indeed got lent-lease to SAF because he was obviously under-equipped or not able to provide enough equipment for himself because he double invested in mechanized. And it seems like instead of going all in on the heavy tank divisions, he's gone with mechanized divisions that have 3 heavy tank destroyers in them.
Which has a piercing of 80. The German armor is higher than that.
Is it already?
I would imagine so.
I mean, I don't know. Germany doesn't have heavy speed.
74. So it will actually pierce the German armor.
Yeah, it's because both parties are still playing with the tier 2s. And tier 2 heavy tanks, of course, in the rules, it's banned to up armor heavy tanks, so you get a guaranteed pierce on a heavy tank.
I'm so glad they're changing the way that armor's working in No Step Back. I think that's going to significantly change how these templates are built.
Yep, I mean, I'm just honestly interested in what kind of innovations Paradox has come up with and how it's actually going to turn out in competitive play. I'm just curious. Let me put it that way. At the end of the day, there's always going to be players that are going to min-max everything they can and try to, find the best combination. But at the very least, I'm just happy to get a new thing to play around with.
Those New Zealand light tanks are getting absolutely beasted by the Italian infantry. Like, it's not even funny. It's not just organization going down. Like, the strength is going down as fast as the organization is.
And oh no! You know what the worst thing is here? Those mech divisions that Saf has are 10 times more useful than his heavy tank. Because he's only got these heavy tank ones, he's got a piercing of 24.
Oh dear.
He couldn't even pierce those heavy tank divisions if the Germans came out and pulled the armor plating off of him. They have no business winning any type of combat whatsoever. I'm fairly sure that a British mother tank from World War I might still be able to pierce those things. Oh god. That is actually bad. Armor 43. I think... Hold on. What are the stats on those light tanks? I want to see if they can pierce them.
You're probably going to need to check the actual template because I'm pretty sure that all the tanks are actually dead now.
Oh no!
That's Australia.
You're right! Zobertus! All of the light tanks are gone! Did they get killed in that North Africa push?
They were killed in battle, not surround, in battle by the Italian infantry.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, their strength was going down as quickly as, if not faster, than the organization was going down.
Well, the problem with these light tanks is that, in essence, they're just a meme. They work incredibly well. Also, welcome back, Mr. Sibo, sorry. But they work incredibly well when it comes to open tiles. So, like you suggested, you have heavy tanks break, and then they push through. And they have an insane max speed, especially with mobile warfare. And they'll just run through. And if you're lucky, the enemy doesn't have AA, they can just go ham. But when you've got a layer upon layer of bricks, they're useless. And they've only got 15 or 14 HP, which is...
Yeah, 14 hit points, 15 organization, 26 armor, and 16 kilometers per hour. So they are incredibly nippy, but I think I'd rather use motorized for that job.
I mean, the whole joke is, I guess, if your opponent doesn't have AA, they can't actually pierce your division. So even though they have like a super... insanely low HP stat, they won't actually take any damage because they can't get pierced. But just to give you some comparison, a 20 with infantry division, at least an Italian one at the moment, has 250 HP, which is approximately 237 more than those light tanks did. F's in chat for Bob Semple. I guess that's what happens when you try the strategy one too many times and people see what you're up to.
So Britain seems to be recovering a little bit from the convoy issue. They've gained another 250 since I checked, so I'm guessing Lend-Lease?
And ooh, this is a development. The Allies have actually pulled all the way back to Zambia. They have completely given up on defending Ethiopia and the rest of Africa, and the Axis is not relenting. I'm looking at camels and Italian infantry divisions just pouring through, and I think that the Axis are going to push them all the way back to South Africa. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I know how this till ends. Usually it does not end well for the Allies.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh boy. The same is currently going on. Well, the Raj is putting up a valiant defense in Northwest Africa. The Italians are having issues with pushing through, but if we pan over to the east, I think we're going to see some German tanks coming over this way.
Let me see if I see any Soviet heavy tanks yet, and no.
Oh yeah, for anybody just coming in, two service announcements. For one, the Allies team is currently being played by Kaiserreich Weekly, and the Axis team is being played by the people from World Ablaze. And we currently have a giveaway ongoing for some Stellaris DLC. Indeed, it is a key for Stellaris Nemesis. If you want to join, you have to head over to my chat and write out !raffle after following, and you have to join the Hoi4 community Discord, which you can find here under this link. And you have a shot at winning the DLC. Do you have any giveaways running right now? I forgot.
No, I don't. I usually just do them bespoke for like 5 minutes when I announce them. And I'm
Fair
still
enough.
waiting for the next big event to do the Hearts of Iron 4 bundle.
Well, I guess that depends on perspective, because I think the event was big enough for New Zealand.
That is true. That is very true. I mean, we could do one in memorandum of the New Zealand sacrifices given right there.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should, because I feel really bad for Zobertus, who finally got caught out.
All right, let's do that. Let me just get that set up.